What's going on, everybody? We're back again with another video. Now this video is more aimed at beginners, you know, either potential gun owners or beginner gun owners. So whether you don't have a gun yet but you're thinking about buying one, or you're somebody who only bought a few guns, you're not experienced in the whole thing, this may help experienced gun owners, but more often than not, those experienced gun owners do these things correctly. But essentially the video is going to be steps I think every gun owner should take before buying a firearm. Basically, it's things that I've done. It's helped me through my experience, and I'll explain the benefits. And doing these things correctly is in your best interest, and it'll help you along the way, you know, in your journey of firearms. Now, by all means, this is my opinion, so if you guys have something that I missed in this list that you would suggest, just put it in the comments below. But we're gonna get started. So the way I'm doing this is I got a list of things and I got them in order. So that's how I'm gonna start it. So first of all, first things first, right? Before you think about buying the gun, you need to understand the responsibility it takes to own one. Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to own a firearm safely, right? But you need to understand safety is a big priority, okay? If you're not applying safe gun handling or whatever, people can get hurt or killed, right? So you just need to understand that. Don't think, while yes, us gun owners, we are always like preachy about, you know, owning guns and stuff, but you got to think about it. Us, especially experienced gun owners, guns are like very normal to us, and they're not like, you know, we're so quick to say, oh yeah, just buy a gun, you know. But you need to understand that you do need to, it does require some level of responsibility to not get in trouble, basically, or hurt somebody, or kill somebody, or kill yourself, kill you, or hurt yourself. So that's the first thing you need to consider is, are you ready to take on the responsibility of not only owning the gun safely and having a deadly weapon in your home, possibly carrying, right? Being around people in public, you know, so stuff like that. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is, since you've got to the point where you're like, okay, I want to buy a firearm, you know, for whatever reason, let's say mainly personal protection, because that's the main reason you're thinking about buying a gun. The one question you need to ask yourself is, why do I want the gun? You know, why am I gonna buy this gun, right? Believe it or not, guns are tools, right? They have uses, right? You don't just, now granted, you can do this, but generally you don't go to a store and buy a gun just to buy a gun, unless it's a collector's thing where you're like, okay, I don't have this gun, I like this gun, okay, boom, I'm gonna buy it. But generally, especially as a beginner, you have a reason, right? So if your reason is self-defense, right, whatever, right, whether it be home defense, concealed carry, whatever you say, right, you got to figure out essentially what role you want that gun to play in your life. So most people, their first gun is typically home defense, or a hybrid between home defense and concealed carry. That's typically, or carry. That's typically what you're going to find. So let's say, boom, hypothetically, okay, I want a gun for home defense, right? Okay, that gives you a wide variety of choices. Now, before you decide, because if you don't understand the benefits of certain things on certain guns, you're not going to know, you know, to what to choose. You might just say, oh, whatever, I want that, right? Like, you know, you listen to Joe Biden tells you to buy a double barrel shotgun, you're gonna be like, oh, I'll get a double barrel shotgun, right? Because a shotgun is like the stereotypical home defense gun, and they're great guns, but they do have their downsides. But anyway, you need to understand the benefits of certain features, certain things, right? So I'll explain it this way. When you're talking home defense, and I have a video, the, you know, best home defense pistol setup, so go check that out. I'll link it in the description. But you need to understand, like, okay, these are the things that are very important. Magazine capacity, right? You got the the effectiveness of the round, right? How effective the round is if you get hits on target, right? You got ease of use, right? So the controls on the gun and also recoil. You got, you know, you got other stuff like parts availability if your gun decides to, you know, if it, or not decides to, but if your gun breaks or whatever, or if you wear a part down. Now granted, most gun owners aren't going to be wearing too many parts down on guns, but anyway, so you got to think of things like that, right? Now I'm not going to go into detail. I might make a video, like I made one about pistol, but I might do another one on rifle and shotgun. But there are things that you got to consider. You don't just look at a gun and say, oh, that's probably good for home defense. Like, put it this way, you'll get people that'll sit here and look at a little 380, a little bodyguard, or a LCP, a 6-shot 380 that's like, that is smaller than my hand, and my hands aren't very big, they're about average size. You'll see women that look at guns like that and be like, oh, that's good for home defense. That's all I need. That thing is cute. You know, that's cute. But in reality, that gun is terrible for home defense. Now, not gonna say it won't work, because I mean, most cases you shoot at somebody, they're probably gonna run, but you don't want to bet your life on that. I've said that before. The reason why a gun like that, that's that small and the capacity it has, and you know, is bad, is because smaller guns are harder to control. They're not as comfortable to shoot, right? So you're not going to go to the range as often to shoot that gun. The capacity is extremely low, so you only have 6 shots, right? You don't know what situation you might get into. Let's say you get 2 home intruders, you got 3 shots per person if you evenly spread it out. But that's assuming you don't miss, okay? You have to understand that the chance of you missing is very likely, especially with a gun that small. So that's just a little example, right? You need to understand that size of gun matters. Capacity definitely matters. And I'll probably do a video talking about capacity, because I've heard people make arguments against that, which is ridiculous, but I'll get into it in another video. But capacity is important. Size is important. Ease of use, whether that be recoil or operation, is important. Stuff like that. And you need to consider that. So obviously when you narrow it down, okay, you got the home defense situation, all right, and then you're like, okay, I kind of know what features are important and what things are important on a gun. So now let me look at a selection of guns, right? So then the next question is, all right, what type of gun would you consider? Most people are going to go pistol first, which I would recommend that, because it's versatile and you could use it in all types of situations, right? So you're like, okay, I might want a pistol. Okay. If you're looking for a home defense pistol, you want to sit here and say, okay, the size and all that stuff, you know, you look at the size, all right, this is a large gun, it's going to be easier to handle. Then you can look at the capacity is decent, you know, can you put a light on it, stuff like that. And then that would make a decent home defense setup. And then you're like, okay, what about a shotgun? Okay, if you're looking at a shotgun, you know, you want a capacity is not a biggest deal. You don't want a double barrel, but like a 5-shot tube, I think it'll work just fine. But you might want something more, like a 7 to 8 shot tube, pump action, or semi-auto as well. But you got to know these things, and you know, you just want to think, all right, what type of gun, right? Hey, is a rifle, you know, you got these things too, but you need to understand, you need to narrow it down, okay? You narrow everything down. Do I want a shotgun, rifle, or a pistol, right? And then when you find the category that you want to look into. Now, I'm not saying you go and buy this thing. I'm not saying that you're guaranteed to buy this item or this category of gun. I'm just saying you want to have an idea of what you might want. So you look into it. You might look into it like, I don't know, you know. So once you figure it out, the next step you're going to want to take is do as much research as you possibly can. And obviously doing research into the 2 questions that I asked before would help definitely. But let's assume you don't do research with the first two questions. Then this is the point where you do the research, because this is the point where you're looking at certain guns that you really might purchase, right? And let's say, all right, let's say you make the decision you want to buy a pistol, and you're like, all right, you know what? I'll buy this cheap $200 High Point, right? Whatever, right? Well, if you don't do your research, you're gonna realize you might end up buying a gun that's extremely shitty, and you can't really get, you can't really refund guns. You can generally send them to the manufacturer and stuff, but you don't want to deal with all that bullshit, okay? So that's the biggest thing that I preach, is do as much research as you possibly can, meaning search up on YouTube videos, search on forums, go ask people, or the way I did it is this, and I did this at the start of my gun ownership, so it helped me so much. All right, so what I would usually do, right, I would have a gun in mind, right, that I would want for whatever reason, right? Like, now granted, now I have more experience and I understand what guns are good for what, so I kind of like, okay, this gun has this feature, I might look into that. So what I would do is I would look into like, okay, let's say a Canik, TP9 SFX or whatever, right? Look into it, like, oh, okay, this gun's more built for competition. You look into that stuff. You look at videos. You look at reviews on YouTube of any YouTuber. Now, granted, you don't want to just go one video of a YouTuber and then they praise it and you're like, oh, I'm buying it. Don't do that. You do multiple sources. You go to different YouTubers, different types of people, this and that, and you kind of get a collective idea, right? Now, I understand some people might say, oh, you shouldn't buy a gun based on somebody else's opinion. That's kind of how shit works in the real world, okay? If you don't have experience, you kind of have to go off people's opinions, but you're going off a collective opinion, right? You're like, if you get a gun and a collective amount of people that say it's garbage, why would you buy that gun? And if you're gonna buy it, you got to understand that that's the known opinion is that gun is trash. So don't think that because you're listening to other people, you're kind of taking in their opinions, that's a bad thing. It's not. Do it. It's a good thing to do. So do your research on YouTube, do videos. YouTube's very helpful on that. You got forums, they possibly can be very helpful. You got people I would interject possibly gun shop employees, but I'll get into that a little bit later because I don't know. That's a slippery slope. But anyway, just do your research. And I'm talking, even if you're not used to doing this, go to YouTube. Let's say you're looking at a Glock 19 because you've heard people recommending that, right? Glock 19. Go to YouTube, search up the model and generation or whatever you're looking into, and just look at videos and look at people's opinions on it and look at people that's had experiences on that specific firearm. And then once you've gathered enough information and you're like, okay, I may want this or I may not want this, right? And before I continue, the thing about it, the reason why you want to do the research like that is because with guns, you can't really refund them, right? Like I said, the only thing you can do is possibly send it to a manufacturer to fix it if it has a problem. But it's not as easy like you go into Walmart, you buy something and you come back and return and get your money back. It's not that. You can't do that. So you want to fill your head with as much knowledge as possible. Another reason that this is very beneficial, having a lot of knowledge before going in, and this is the thing. You don't got to be experienced to have knowledge, right? Don't let people think that they could talk shit about you because you don't have experience with shooting the guns or whatever, but you have knowledge. Okay, that's a good thing to have knowledge before you buy the gun. It'll help you. Another way that it's going to help you, as I was getting into, is let's say this is the thing. People, especially new gun owners or potential gun owners, they think that they can just go into a gun shop and ask a gun shop employee about this gun or whatever gun they want, and whatever they say, they're going off of it, right? Now, I'm not talking shit about gun shop employees. I'm not trying to talk down to anybody that works at a gun shop. I'm saying based on my experience. Now, my experience is very limited, okay? But I'm basically going to be 3 years into gun ownership this June, okay? But based on my experiences going into shops, talking to people, buying guns and stuff, right? I've came across a good amount of gun shop employees that are ignorant that are fanboys of certain products, or those are the main two you'll get, right? Ignorant or just fanboys. That's the main ones I come across. And what I mean by ignorant is they don't know certain things. Their knowledge, they don't have the knowledge of certain things that you're asking about. You know, you might go into a shop being brand new and you're like, oh, what about this gun? You think it's a good gun? And I might say yes. And then you buy it and take it home and you realize it's shitty. It's like, you got to understand, gun shop employees not only are there to make sales, they may be there to help you, but you can't rely on that, okay? And I've seen it myself, right? I'm just speaking from experience. And me having the knowledge beforehand has helped me with that. So don't rely on gun shop employees for your knowledge. Don't. Now, I mean, it's better to ask than not ask if you are, that's what you're going to do. But I'm telling you right now, just do your research, okay? Because that'll help you. You might go into a gun shop and then you ask for a gun that you've done extensively research on and you know it's a good gun and the gun shop employee doesn't recommend it. That's personally happened to me, and I've told you that in one of my other videos. But that's what you do. Just do your research. Fill all that information. Look up all the videos of your gun that you're looking into. Look up features. Look up whatever, man. You know. So just fill your head with knowledge. That's all I'm gonna tell you. As best way as you can. Don't think it's stupid. I don't need to do it. Okay. It's helped me out plenty. So that's that step. Now the next step is get hands-on experience if possible with the specific firearm that you're seeking. Now, whether it be a pistol like this or whether it be a rifle like this. When I say get hands-on, now obviously some people, like I came across videos of YouTubers, right? And they're like, oh, shoot the gun before you buy it, right? If you haven't shot it, don't buy it. Now, there's some cases where you can shoot a gun before you buy it, in the sense that some ranges may rent guns that they may just so happen to rent a gun that you're looking at or buying, right? But there's a lot of guns that gun ranges don't rent, so don't rely on that, okay? You might want a gun that a gun shop does not rent, or a gun range does not rent. So if you can get hands-on experience, and I did this when I first shot a gun, it wasn't my gun. It was a rented Glock 17. And it wasn't even this generation that I have. It was actually a Gen 5. This is a 4. And not much difference in shooting, same shit. It's a Glock, you know what I mean? And it helped me get comfortable. So my point is, get hands-on if you can, whether it be renting, or if you have a buddy or somebody you know that has the gun that you want, get hands-on with it. Go shoot it. Get familiar with how it feels. That'll just make you more confident and make you more comfortable when you're purchasing the gun, right? Because once again, you can't just go and take a gun like off a shelf and just go to the range and shoot it. And then no, it has to be a rent gun, a rentable gun, or a gun like that your friend has or something. So if it's possible, get hands-on, shoot it. How long ever you want to, how many rounds you want to get comfortable with it. And that'll only help you. And it's that simple. So that's the next step. Now the step that I have next, and this one's kind of goes into the research, kind of. This is another thing about that is, once you've discovered what gun you want, you've handled it, right? And you know, you're like, yes, I want that gun, okay? Don't get ripped off. And obviously what I mean by that is, when you do your research, the price is a big point to that, okay? You don't want to just go into a gun shop, you see a gun that you want, and not even question the price, not even look at the price, not even, obviously you're gonna look at the price, but you're not even understanding that if this is a good deal or not, or if this is standard price, or if this is a price gouge, right? And this is especially important to new gun owners, especially around time periods like 2020, like when I got into guns, where a lot of guns were hard to find, or there was a gun shortage and an ammo shortage, and the prices of guns back then were ridiculous. So this is very important. I wouldn't want you guys getting ripped off. And here's an example, right? Let's say you're looking up Glock 19, right? And you go into a shop and you're not caring about the price like that. You're not really like thinking if it's standard or not. You just see a Glock 19, right? And that bitch is like $800, right? And you're like, okay, I want that gun. That is a ridiculous price. Okay, now granted, if we're in a time where, you know, the Glocks are hard to find and stuff, and you really want one, you'll pay the money. And I'm not against that, because I've done that with one of my guns. But the point being is, don't try your best not to overpay. Call around, right? Call around and ask for specific guns. But let's, like, you don't, you know, I guess the analogy is, don't walk into a car dealership, see the first car and just buy it, right? Look around, like shop around to see what the deal is. Like as far as prices go, you might get a better deal. I went to a gun show one time, and I seen this private seller lady, this couple that were selling a used Generation 3 Glock 19 for $950. And a ignorant gun owner might not even understand that. They might look at that and be like, oh, okay, you know, but that's a terrible price, right? For Glocks specifically, your standard Glocks, obviously the generation matters, but you're going to be paying between $500 and like $600, maybe a little bit over $600, you know, with all that extra shit you're paying. But that's the price range. I personally wouldn't pay over $700 for a Glock, period. I think that's overboard. But I mean, you'll pay for what you want, but just don't get ripped off, okay? And they will try and do that to you, especially if you go to shops, pawn shops. Sometimes they'll try and rip you off. Just don't pay the prices, you know. Look into it. That's all it is. That's all I'm saying. Like, just know when you do your research, just know the prices and what you're getting. Don't let somebody rip you off. Don't let somebody just take advantage of you, even if you're new. So if you take all these steps, right, and you do them, you will have a better time as a new gun owner when you're purchasing firearms. And I follow these steps to this day. Now, obviously, since I'm more experienced, I'm still kind of beginner status. I've only been in it a few years, but I'm more experienced in the sense I've bought multiple guns and I know what it's like, and I've done research on multiple guns and I know what certain things are. So some of these things on this list, I don't really have to follow. Like, all right, put it this way. The get hands-on step, right? I've shot multiple 9mm pistols. I know what most 9mm pistols feel like from all sizes. So for the most part, if I'm looking at a 9mm pistol, I've done my research. I don't really have to get hands-on with it because I know what most 9mm pistols feel like, right? That would still help me to get hands-on, but I wouldn't really need to in that sense because I've shot multiple. But I still follow most of those steps though to this day. I still do a ton of research on every gun that I've bought, that I have. I've done extensive research on, and it's helped me, and I don't regret any of my purchases because of that, right? So and I've only sold one gun, and I sold the gun to Mark. You guys know Mark, you know, because he asked if he would buy it, and he would get better use because my carry gun, basically that was my carry gun, and I switched it with my 19, and it would have just been sitting, right? So that's why I decided to sell it. But even that gun, I don't regret purchasing. It was a great firearm, and it still is, and to this day. But those are all the steps, y'all. If you got any extra steps that you want to add, or any other tips for new gun owners or anybody like that, put them in the comments below, because it'll help people. But that was my whole purpose of this video, was to help new people or potential gun owners, you know, to help with their purchasing, and help them have a better experience buying a gun. So oh, and one more thing, don't impulse buy guns. I didn't say that earlier. Do not impulse buy guns. I'm pretty sure the research part kind of says that, but don't impulse buy. Don't, you know. So but anyway, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video if you like the video. Go subscribe to Centerfire Podcast, the podcast channel with me and Mark. And don't forget to subscribe to Mark's channel, YSN Santana, YSN_Santana 727, and then Centerfire Podcast for the podcast channel. So I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.